today is all about URSSAF. It's often around this time of year that URSSAF will get in touch with you and tell you how much money you owe them. And so it's often around about this time of year that you see lots of people running around like this. Oh my God, URSSAF want all my money, URSSAF want half my money, URSSAF want 70% of my money, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Okay, you don't want to be one of those people. So today I'm going to give you some, hopefully, very simple and clear explanations about exactly how much money URSSAF is going to want from whom and also when they're going to want it. So first thing to say is if you have a micro or if you have your own company but you are a salaried employee of that company, which of course is perfectly possible, then today we are not talking about you. We are only talking about these guys. TNSs. TNS is a term that comes up quite often in accounting French, and all it stands for is travailleur non salarié. So you are somebody who has your own business, but you don't actually have a pay slip at the end of the month. You draw money from the business, but you have no pay slip. Who is going to be a TNS? First up, my favorites, the Entreprise individuelle. If you have been watching other videos, then hopefully by now you will have understood that as an entreprise individuelle, all of the profit from the activity is considered to be your own personal revenue. And the same is true if you are the gérant of an EURL who has decided to pay income tax. Legally, you two are different, but financially, to all intents and purposes, you are identical. And if this is your situation, then when it comes around to tax and URSSAF time, then you're going to be feeling a bit like this little dormouse here. I think it's a dormouse. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. But the point being, there is absolutely nothing in between you and the state to stop the state from getting their hands on a very large portion of your money. And this is especially true if you are an activity who has very low overheads. Your profit will be high because you have very few expenses to deduct. So as far as the state is concerned, you are an absolute sitting duck, or in this case, a sitting dormouse. You are not the only TNSs. A TNS could also be the gérant of an EURL who has decided to pay company tax, or the gérant of an SARL who's decided to pay company tax. An EURL and SARL are actually identical, apart from that an EURL has only one director, whereas an SARL has at least two directors, and that's the only difference. But in either of these two situations, the whole profit of the activity is not considered as your personal revenue. The only thing that's considered as your personal revenue is the remuneration that you decide to withdraw from the company. And if that is your situation, then you'll be feeling a bit more like this little guy, who, as you can see, has a screen protecting him from the ravenous lion, doing a pretty good job of protecting you from the worst ravagers. I hope that's clear. We're going to go on to how much. You have probably heard the figure of 46%, 47% being bandied around. Does that mean that if you have 60,000 euros as your profit or your remuneration, in this case we've lumped everybody together, we've just said, okay, you've got 60,000 euros. Does it mean that you're going to lose nearly 30,000 euros in social charges? Well, thankfully, no, it doesn't. If you go on the URSSAF simulator, then what you'll find out is that in social charges, you'll be paying 19,330 euros, which is kind of good news. So then where does this figure of 47% come from? Because if you deduct your charges from your gross profit or from your gross remuneration, then you'll be left with this. This is your net, 40,670. And what you can see is that this 19,330, although it's only between 31 and 32%, I say only, of your gross, this is actually 47.5%, give or take a few euros, of your net. So that's where that figure comes from. So I hope this is now starting to be slightly less opaque for you. For the next bit, the when do they ask you for this money is extremely complicated to explain. I tried lots of different timelines and tables before I settled on one. I want you to know that if you need to go back and look at it again, then it's not you being stupid, it's just an extremely complicated system. So I hope I've made it as clear as possible. Here we're imagining that you set up an activity at the beginning of 2023. And in accounting, when we talk about a year that we're in right now, then that's the year N. And the year after will be N+1, and the year before was N-1, and 2 years later will be N+2, etc., etc., etc. So imagining that we set up at the beginning of 2023, URSSAF has absolutely no idea how much money you're going to make, and you haven't declared any money. Nobody can know. So what they're going to do is they're going to say, all right, it's a new activity. We don't imagine they're going to make a lot of money. We're going to just imagine that they make a revenue of 8,358 euros, which is not completely arbitrary, but that's another subject. Your real revenue you will not declare until much later. So for the time being, you're going to start paying social charges on this provisional revenue, and social charges on 8,358 work out at 2,525. Even once we get past the summer and into the autumn, there won't be a regularisation because you had no previous year's activity, so there's nothing to regularize. And at the moment, because you've made no declarations of revenue, there's no adjustment to make either. So around about this time of year, when they send you your appel, then they're going to do the same thing. They're going to say, for next year, for N+1, we're going to imagine the same thing, that you also have this 8,358 of revenue, in which case your social charges will be exactly the same, 2,525. Let's see what happens in the following year. Don't panic. Okay. In your first year, as it turns out, you did not earn 8,358 euros. You had a profit of 80,000 euros, which you will declare in the spring, April, May, hopefully at the latest June. You'll be making your tax declaration, which will then be passed directly to URSSAF, and then URSSAF will recalculate, and they'll say, oh my goodness, last year you did not actually earn 8,358 euros, you earned 80,000 euros. And social charges based on 80,000 euros are 25,232 euros. So thank you very much for your 2,525 that you've already paid us, but actually now you owe us 22,707 euros. That's the first thing that they're going to say. The second thing that they're going to say is, for this year, for 2024, we started off only charging you 2,525 euros based on 8,358 euros. But seeing as how now we know you're much more likely to be earning 80,000 euros, we need to adjust the payments that you're making right now for this year. And for this year, you have been paying 2,525 divided by 12 gives you what, about 210 euros every month. That's all you've been paying. However, what you should have been paying is this amount divided by 12, which works out at 2,102 euros every month. Now, assuming that they get in touch with you in October, that leaves 3 months of the year that are left. So they're going to say 2,102 minus the 210 euros that you've been paying so far is going to leave 1,892 euros for each of the 3 months of the year that are remaining. And that will mean that for the rest of the year, you will pay us a total of 5,676 euros. And that's going to approach much more closely the amount that you probably really do owe us, which will only be defined once we've seen your tax declaration that you'll make next spring. So now you owe them this from last year, this for the rest of this year, and at the same time they're going to say to you, now that we know that your estimated income will be in a ballpark of 80,000 euros, we're going to just tell you that for next year You also owe us €25,232. Now, if you're not expecting this to happen, obviously at this point you are in very, very deep doo-doo. Most people do not have these amounts of money lying around, and URSSAF know that, so they will be quite accommodating, and what they'll do is they'll make you a payment plan which will stretch over months and years, and it will start to become very, very confusing because you will never know how much of your original debt you have paid off. So you would really like to avoid this situation at all costs if you possibly can. And we haven't finished yet because obviously we're only in our second year of activity, and now we need to move on to the third. Let's imagine that in this second year you did not earn 80,000 but 90,000. Now we've got even more to catch up. We started off with a provisional income of €80,000 with provisional social charges of 25,232. There they are. That's what they told you about at the end of last year. They're right there. But because on €90,000 you should have paid €28,152, that means that now you owe them another €2,920. And that's assuming that you've managed to pay off all of this and all of this. Because if you haven't paid those off yet, then this is just going to get added on to a longer and longer and longer list of debt that you have towards URSSAF. So they're going to ask you for this as a régularisation for 2024. And then they're going to do this adjustment for the rest of the year, because they're going to say, okay, if you're actually earning €90,000 now and we've only been charging you on €80,000, that means for the 3 remaining months of the year, same deal as we had up here, for the rest of the year, you're going to owe us another €732. And because you earned €90,000 last year, we're going to ask you for social charges based on €90,000 for next year. So you owe us this and this, and for next year, you're going to have to pay us this, and that's all assuming that you've already paid off all of this. And let's just imagine for a minute that in this third year of activity, you do not make €80,000 or €90,000 for some reason unbeknownst. You actually only make €70,000. Anything could have gone wrong. But what that means is that in a year of low income, you also have a year of very high charges, and nobody wants that to happen. So what can you do about that? Well, as I see it, you have two choices. The first thing you can do is when you first start your activity, if you see that you're earning more money, if you see that you're going to end up with a huge régularisation the following year and you don't want that, you can at any point get in touch with URSSAF and say, look, I'm earning more money, you need to be taking more money from me, I don't want to run up a debt, let me pay you more. And believe me, URSSAF will be very, very happy to take more money from you. Nobody's going to complain about that. So you can do that, and that's going to avoid that huge debt situation that we saw just now. The second thing that you can do is, now that you know how much they're going to want and when they're going to want it, then you can take that money and you can put it in a savings account, and at least it will be earning you some interest. Maybe not very much, but it will be earning you some interest, and the important thing is that you will have it when you need it, when they ask you for it. I have seen so many companies wiped out with these kind of debts in year 2 and year 3. You don't want it to happen to you. And no, it's not going to happen to you because I've told you how to avoid it. So I hope that was useful. And thanks for staying till the end. It's a long video.